All right, guys, if you love college football, you just can't miss this game this Saturday between Auburn and Georgia. Auburn coming into this game number 12 in the playoff ranking, Georgia at number 4. A lot of folks were debating, man, how the heck did Georgia wound up being the number 4 team in the country? Well, it's kind of easy. When you beat Notre Dame and you beat Florida, and your only loss is an overtime loss to South Carolina, the committee, especially early on, just don't really have much of a body of work to go by. I mean, hey, you just go ahead and put Georgia in the number 4 spot just to get things going. Now, in 2020, it's going to be a little different because you really won't be able to solidify a lot of these rankings until like in the middle of November, because a lot of conferences, well, in the SEC, a lot of teams will be playing their divisional rivals late in the season. Go ahead and like this video, comment, and subscribe to Vernon Speaks Sports Auburn. And I'm here to tell you that it's always great to be an Auburn Tiger or Eagle. All right, so Georgia comes down to the Plains, Jordan Hare Stadium, where they've won 11 of the last 14 matchups between Auburn, including some in Jordan Hare Stadium. The most memorable one, though, well, 2, actually 2013, the prayer at Jordan Hare, and also the 2017 shellacking of Georgia in Auburn 40-17. Now, a lot of folks will say, well, Georgia has actually won a SEC West game on the road, but I do not consider the Georgia Dome or Mercedes-Benz Stadium when they played there in 2017 as an away game. If you know, proximity-wise, Atlanta is all but local as far as Georgia goes. And as a matter of fact, Georgia had the opportunity to go ahead and start buying tickets in 2017 because the SEC East was already decided like a month before. We didn't know Auburn was going until the Iron Bowl. So that was definitely all but a home game for the Georgia Bulldogs. But anyway, this is a different situation. A lot of moving parts, a lot of crazy scenarios. If Georgia wins this particular football game, they are the SEC East champions, and they will have an automatic bid to the SEC championship game, where they will more than likely take on the LSU Bayou Bengals, the Tigers out of Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Also, you got Alabama at number 5. That's like, hey, man, we want to be in this thing too. LSU was kind of kicking our ass for a minute, but we found a way to make that a particular football game. Right now, we are number 5. We're on the outside looking in. But also, Oregon is looking at it like, hey, man, you know, we want some of this love too. We probably will win the Pac-12 championship. So all eyes will be on this particular football game because Auburn appears to be a common denominator in pretty much the majority or a good portion of the top 10. Auburn played Oregon the first game of the season, winning that game 27-21, losing to Florida 24-13. The game that actually keeps Auburn in contention for the college football playoff is a narrow loss to LSU 23-20 out in Baton Rouge. They pretty much came up with the best defensive scheme scenario-wise possible to keep LSU at bay, 23-20, and that keeps Auburn in contention possibly for a college football playoff contention. And a lot of y'all talking about, man, how in the heck is a 2-loss team that probably won't even win their sub-conference, definitely won't go to the SEC championship game, how are they still in contention? Well, when you play when half of your schedule is with top 25 teams, majority at some point have been in the top 10, yeah, you should be in contention. Will you be? It's all up to the committee. And as a matter of fact, this particular situation could force the committee to start to reevaluate how they monitor teams. Of course, in the SEC, you can't really predict how the interdivisional rivalries will take place. It just so happens that this was the year that Auburn plays Florida, and it just so happens that Florida was in the top 10. Now, next year, probably won't be the same case scenario. But as far as the selection committee goes, you might have to start. Let's just say if Auburn wins out, like I said in the podcast before, you might have to invent an Auburn clause that says, man, if you play 6 teams that are ranked, majority of which are in the top 10, you might have to start to reevaluate the selection process as to who gets to the Final Four. Or you may have to expand that thing to at least 6 teams. Because I'm telling you, if Auburn wins out, they'll be in the top 6, top 5. And the only reason why you keep them out is because of the technicalities of the conference championships. So, and that's fair. That's the way that it's been. But like I said before, there's no team in the top 25 that will have had to face the type of competition that Auburn has had. And when you look at it, 24-13 against Florida, that's an 11-point loss. And then LSU, a 3-point loss. You're talking about a 2-touchdown differential from Auburn being all the way in the conversation. Now, let's get to the Georgia Bulldogs. Now, I think Georgia is a good football team. Sample size-wise, I'm not convinced. Because when you talk about the fact that most of the teams that they played against, yeah, they only allowed 2.7 yards per rushing attempt against teams. But when you look at the body of work, Notre Dame, Florida, the 2 teams that, you know, are a part of the resume building process, I mean, it's a situation where those guys abandon the run quick. P. Ryan only had 31 yards. Notre Dame's running back wasn't very productive, but at the same time, they don't do it too well against any team. And this is not to knock the Georgia Bulldogs, but we got to be real here when we talk about Georgia on defense. I think what Auburn has to do, if they're going to be successful in this particular football game, especially based on video footage of how the Georgia defense likes to attack their opponents, I think you got to push the perimeter game against Georgia. Nothing. You're not going to get anything up the middle against the Georgia Bulldogs because they have a very stout interior defensive line. But I think you can have some success attacking the perimeter with guys like DJ Williams and Boobie Whitlow. And also Eli Stove is a lot more healthy to where you can do some run pass option with Eli Stove. And you could possibly go ahead and stretch the envelope with Georgia and get some zone read going. See, here's the thing. When I look at Georgia as a defense, I think they're very good. I think they're very talented. I think they're very good at what they limit opponents to do. However, this is a huge if Auburn can kind of stretch the envelope a little bit against Georgia, attack the perimeter, attack horizontally with tight ends, i.e. J.J. Wilson, I think Auburn can have some success against a Georgia team that hasn't been battle-tested. Why do I say they haven't been battle-tested? I mean, it's not like Florida and Notre Dame has been, you know, just offensive juggernauts throughout the season. And then we're not going to even talk about Kentucky and South Carolina. So I think this is a game here against Georgia in Jordan-Hare Stadium where Georgia's really going to have to find out if they're that good or not on defense. Because DJ Williams has had some success here lately. Boobie Whitlow, although hurt, when he's healthy, actually stands a chance. Also, you start to attack Sean Shivers on the perimeter, you just don't know what will happen. So, with that in mind, I think this is going to be a great football game. I also think that Auburn has an advantage. You know, you talk about traveling in the SEC. The crowd's loud. The crowds are boisterous. Auburn has a lot to play for. Auburn has a whole lot to play for. A win over Georgia puts them not only in the top 10, but in contention when Alabama comes to town. Go ahead and like this video, comment, and subscribe to Vernon Speaks Sports Auburn. And as always, it's great to be an Auburn Tiger, War Eagle.